So, was it propped up,
Yes, sir.
or was it leaning over the chair as you indicated on January the 13th?
He was propped up.
So he wasn't leaning over the, that
No,
was
sir.
just something that you wrote that was incorrect on January the 13th of 2014.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you're a police officer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And by that time, you were a police officer for how long?
15, 16 years.
And you must have been trained that when you're writing a statement, you've got that, write that statement precisely and accurately, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because in our system of justice, we can't afford to make mistakes, can we?
No, sir.
Especially police officers, correct?
Yes, sir.
The one thing is that you did not hear Mr. Reeves say a peep, correct?
That's correct.
In fact, you couldn't even see Mr. Reeves.
No, sir.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because it was dark, correct?
It was low lighting.
Is low lighting the equivalent of dark?
No, sir.
It's not.
No, sir.
Well, why couldn't you see Mr. Reeves if it was just low lighting? The prosecutor came over here and said, well, could you see this person? Could you see this person? But you couldn't see Mr. Reeves.
No, sir.
And you could only see a silhouette of Mr. Oulson.
May I ask a question?
No, you can answer the question.
Okay.
You could only see
Yes, sir.
the silhouette
Yes, sir.
because it was dark.
That's correct. No, it was low lighting.
When you heard Mr. Oulson, you wanted to find out, quote, who was raising hell.
Yes,
Correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
That's what was in your mind at that point in time.
Yes, sir.
You wanted to find out who was raising hell. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the only one that you heard that was raising hell was that silhouette.
Yes, sir.
You don't know how long that silhouette, Mr. Oulson, was raising hell, correct?
That's correct.
Because you were focused on the previews, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because your wife had to be the one to nudge you to say, hey, you need to pay some attention here.
Yes, sir.
You did not see the entire exchange that took place from Mr. Oulson towards Mr. Reeves.
Not the entire, no, sir.
And you had no idea, therefore, if Mr. Oulson had come over that chair on a previous few seconds, correct?
No, sir.
Because you were looking over there, correct?
Correct.
And so you don't know what was happening at that moment before you looked over there.
Correct.
What you do know is that Mr. Oulson was raising hell and using the F word, correct?
Using or
Well,
used?
Maybe I should say saying the F word. You want me to say it?
He said the F word.
Okay. And certainly that alarmed you because to hear that yelling with the F word in a theater is totally out of character, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
You would never in your entire life expect someone to be getting up in the middle of a theater and using that word, yelling, right?
Yes, sir.
And it alarmed you 7 to 9 seats away.
Yes, sir.
You were doing your best to try to see what you could see, but all you could see was a silhouette and could not even see Mr. Reeves.
No, sir.
But you know that that silhouette was facing in one direction and one direction when it was raising hell, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was facing at Curtis Reeves.
Yes, sir.
And it was in very close proximity to Curtis Reeves.
Yes, sir.
And it was tall.
Yes, sir.
You certainly never saw Mr. Oulson or this silhouette with a phone in his hand, did you?
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
You never saw this silhouette with a phone in his hand, right?
No,
All
sir.
you're seeing is a silhouette, right? No
No,
phone.
sir.
But you say that, I guess you called it a flick of popcorn.
Yes.
Now, tell me, if you were only able to see a silhouette, how could you see someone flicking?
It was just an arm, a hand, and then it was a flick.
So, meaning an arm and a hand towards Mr. Reeves.
It was just out over where the silhouette was standing in a flick.
So that hand went from the silhouette out towards Mr. Reeves,
Correct.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In very close proximity.
Yes, sir.
And it was then almost instantaneously. You heard the shot.
Yes, sir.
In fact, you wouldn't be surprised if it's less than a full second.
Within a couple seconds. Yes, sir.
Well, you didn't. You're
No, I didn't time it.
guesstimating, right? And my question is, you wouldn't be surprised if it was less than a second.
No, sir.
You didn't see the gun because it was dark.
Correct.
And so this is a good one. You couldn't see Mr. Oulson. Couldn't see the gun,
No, sir.
but you saw popcorn?
Yes, sir.
How could you see popcorn if you can't see anything than a silhouette of Mr. Oulson, and you can't see a gun, and you can't see Mr. Reeves? How are you able to see a popcorn? Tough one, no?
No, it's not tough. It's just, that's what it was.
That's what it was. Now, you gave us a statement on direct examination where you indicated that the shot took place and Mr. Oulson fell to the ground?
No, sir.
He didn't fall to the ground.
No, sir.
Okay. So shot took place. What did Mr. Oulson do?
He held his hands over his chest
Okay.
and said, "I can't believe he shot me."
Okay.
And
That quickly. Shot. I can't believe he shot me. And then what happens?
he kind of went towards the north side or away from me of the building, down that same road he was on.
Okay. And
Eventually, I guess he fell.
you didn't see him fall.
No.
Okay. And so you saw all that from your vantage point of where you were.
Yes.
Meaning 7 to 8, 9 seats from the incident. Because it shot, Mr. Oulson, statement, right? So
Yes.
you're still at your seat,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
And so can you tell me how long it took you to get from your position at your seat to Mr. Reeves after that took place?
30 seconds.
Okay.
I wasn't timing it up.
You never saw Mrs. Oulson
No, sir.
at all.
I seen her at the very end,
Well, at the very end of what? After the shot?
after they turned the lights up and people were,
But before they turned the lights on, you didn't even see Mrs. Oulson
no, sir.
because it was dark.
Yes, sir. No, it was low lighting.
But somehow you said on direct examination that she was seated to the right of Mr. Oulson? Mrs. Oulson? Did you
She was
say
to
that
the-
on direct? Remember in direct? When they're asking you where Mrs. Oulson was, you said, well, she was seated to the right of Mr. Oulson.
I don't remember that. You're talking about today?
What's that?
You're talking about today?
No, we're talking about the incident. On the date of the incident, was Mrs. Oulson seated to the right of Mr. Oulson?
I don't know.
Because you didn't see her.
No, sir, I didn't see her.
Now, you get to Mr. Reeves. You're a trained law enforcement officer, right?
Yes, sir.
In a situation where you just had a shooting, certainly you don't want to have a firearm exposed to the general public, correct?
Correct.
Because they're going to think that you're a threat, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you've been trained on that in your own law enforcement career, right?
Yes, sir.
So you didn't find it odd whatsoever that Mr. Reeves, immediately after the shot, put the gun on his lap. You weren't surprised by that.
Yes, sir, I was.
Why would you be surprised by him putting it on his neck, on his lap, when he didn't want to expose everybody to think that he was someone that was dangerous? You certainly didn't want him to have a gun in his hand after the shot,
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to object to counsel testifying.
Oh,
This isn't
it is
proper
cross.
It's not proper cross.
All overruled.
Right? You do not want, you've been trained in law enforcement. Hey, listen, if there's a situation with a big crowd, especially if you're not in a police uniform, you don't want to have a gun in your hand everybody thinking that you're a threat, right?
That's correct.
And so when you went over to Mr. Reeves, I'm sure you thought to yourself, oh, highly trained individual, he puts the gun
Yeah,
right on
I'm
his
going to
knee.
object to that. It's totally speculation. Facts not in evidence.
It's cross, Your Honor. I can ask him
understand
that
it's
question.
cross, but it's improper cross.
No.
Overruled.
Right? You went over there and said, ah, yeah, put that gun right there. In fact, is that correct? Highly trained individual, put it there. Nobody sees him with a gun in his hand.
I didn't know that he was highly trained.
No, at that point you didn't, but you must have thought that. Why would you put it on his knee?
No, sir, I didn't think that at all.
You didn't think that. But I can tell you that when you picked up that gun from his knee, you quickly hit it, right?
That's correct.
Because you didn't want everybody in that particular theater to think that you were a threat.
That's correct.
Because you were not in a police uniform.
That's correct.
And what happens is, if they think you're a threat and somebody's got a gun, now he starts shooting at you, and these poor individuals in the theater may get shot.
That's correct.
You wanted that gun out of sight for the right reasons, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't want anybody misconstruing you to be an aggressor.
That's correct.
Now, when you went over to Mr. Reeves, pretty close after the shot, and you looked down, can I borrow your chair? Sorry, Mr. Martin. I should have brought my own chair. Mr. Reeves is still seated,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
And right between his legs, you're here, right? Standing up.
Yes, sir.
And you look down, and right between his legs, you see a phone.
Yes, sir.
You being a law enforcement officer, knowing that that could be a piece of evidence, right?
Yes, sir.
You make sure that when Mr. Reeves is finally cuffed, that you tell the officers, hey, by the way, there's a phone here that you need to pay attention to. Correct?
Yes, sir.
You told Mr. Reeves that you were a law enforcement officer when you approached him.
Yes, sir.
He told you likewise that he was a retired law enforcement officer.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have to wrestle Mr. Reeves.
No, sir.
He was very cooperative,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And he told you that there was something, someone had hit him, right?
Yes, sir.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Crouch.
They were talking about something that Mr. Reeves said about something about his eye, but he also told you before he did that he was hit.
He said something was in his eye.
Did he say that he was hit?
He was hit with something.
Okay. That he was hit with something. And at the time that he told you that was right when you approached him.
Yes, sir.
And the lighting was still at that point that it was dark.
It was low lighting. It wasn't dark.
Low lighting. And you didn't have a flashlight with you.
No, sir.
And you weren't going to be looking for any redness on his face. You were looking for, oh, is he bleeding? Does he have a gash, right?
Yes, sir.
You weren't looking for anything that had any other indicia of injury.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
In fact, you didn't even get real close to him, did you?
No, sir.
In fact, you remember Mr. Reeves' son, Matthew Reeves,
Yes, sir.
coming up,
Yes, sir.
and him identifying himself also as a police officer,
That's correct.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And you remember him having blood all over his hands because he was the one that was attending to Mr. Oulson, correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't want to talk to him either.
No, sir.
Now, we had some testimony concerning interviews, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've been trained, obviously, in your career, that when they give you a voluntary statement form, you're not telling this jury that some police officer had to come over and tell you how to fill it out.
No, sir.
You know how to fill it out, right?
Yes, sir.
You're going to put in as much detail as you possibly can.
Preliminary. Yes, sir.
And the information that you're going to put in this document, you're going to make sure that it is true,
Yes, sir.
right? Because
Yes,
you're going
sir.
to be placed under oath at some point in time, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not a document to fool around with.
No, sir.
And so, early in your career, very early in your career, probably your academy, you were taught about something called contamination, right?
Yes, sir.
Witness contamination.
Yes, sir.
And that is a very basic investigative tool, right?
Yes, sir.
That you're not supposed to allow witnesses to come into contact with each other. Correct?
That's correct.
That's very dangerous, you would agree.
Yes, sir.
It's very dangerous in our system of criminal justice, right?
Yes, sir.
Because people hear things, and whether it's right or wrong, they start adopting it for themselves, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you don't really get to know whether the witness's testimony is their own or 15 other people that they heard that statement from.
That's correct.
And so you've been trained as early as the academy, separate these witnesses.
Yes, sir.
And you were there in that theater, and just the opposite happened, correct? You were a congregating group right in that theater, correct?
I can't speak for everybody else, but I was with my wife. Yes, sir.
Well, you were with your wife, and there was a group of people around you.
Yes, sir.
And not a single police officer came up to you and said, Mr. Hamilton, let's make sure we got to separate you all. Please don't talk to anybody about your testimony, right?
That's correct.
And you didn't hear that police officer tell anybody in that group, 30, 40, 50 people, whatever they were. You didn't see any police officer come up and say, hey, group, separate, do not talk about your testimony with anybody else.
No, sir.
And you certainly know that there was a battalion of Pasco County Sheriff's officers all over the Grove Theater.
I don't know about a battalion, but there were several in there. Yes, sir.
Many, right?
Many. Yes, sir.
And knowing that, you as a police officer, you get interviewed by Detective Proctor, the lead detective in this case, right?
Yes, sir.
And he interviews you with your wife there, and he interviews your wife with you there, right?
Yes, sir.
And let's take it one step further. Before he even turns on the tape, you all have a little discussion, right? Off tape.
I don't recall a discussion off tape.
Well, you certainly don't think that would be appropriate, right?
To have a discussion with both of us there?
Off tape.
If, according to what we're discussing,
Well, the case.
I don't recall that discussion.
If it happened, that would be improper.
Yes, sir.
Highly improper, right?
Be improper.
You would have never done it in your career as a law enforcement officer.
No, sir.
There is no reason whatsoever to have a conversation about the case when you have a tape recorder present without turning that tape recorder on.
That's correct.
When you went into that interview room, you wanted to tell Detective Proctor what you knew.
Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
That was your purpose.
Yes, sir.
Homicide case, right?
Yes, sir.
You expect thorough interviews in a homicide case, right?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been on the stand, you think? You came in at 1 o'clock?
A little after. Yes, sir.
It's 2:27, right?
Yes, sir.
I've been up here asking you a lot of questions, haven't I?
Yes, sir.
Your interview with Detective Proctor was 5 minutes.
Okay.
You think that's a thorough interview in a homicide investigation?
No, sir.
You certainly wouldn't have done that, right? And you were never a homicide investigator. You would have never done that in a homicide case, would you?
No, sir.
Because our system of justice requires thoroughness, correct?
Yes, sir.
The one thing that you know is that when you went up to Mr. Reeves, took the gun from him, he was concerned for Mr. Oulson.
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Very well.
May this witness be released.
I'll stand by.
Mr. Hamilton, you're free to go, but if you get called back, you have to come back,
Yes,
okay?
yes, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
What's that? I am. Been up and down, up and down.
Sir, come this way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a 10-minute recess. Remember my instructions during the break. No independent research or talking amongst yourselves.
All rise for the recess for 10 minutes.
You can be seated, thank you. All right. We ready for the jurors? Okay.
Now, you have to excuse consent to an administrative matter, get a document typed up so we can do something.
I'm okay if you're okay.
I'm okay, it's just take me a second.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead, and we're gonna proceed without you.
Yes, I'm just gonna have it process started and have
Okay.
it brought down.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jurors may be seated.
Thank you.
President accounted for, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy. Ladies and gentlemen, were you all able to abide by my instructions during the recess? All right, number 9, you still with us? Okay, good. Glad to hear that for now. Mr. Garcia, you're standing up.
I am, Judge. Yeah, Deputy Eric Jones, Your Honor.
All righty.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, shall be God?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Deputy Jones, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
If you would, please, can you speak loudly and clearly into that microphone and direct all your answers to the members of this jury?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you would, please, can you state your full name
Eric Jones.
and your profession?
I'm a corporal in the training unit at the Pasco Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
Coming up on 27 years.
All right. And Corporal Jones, directing your attention back to January 13th of 2014, how were you employed by the Sheriff's Office on that date?
I was a corporal in training out in patrol as I was learning to become a patrol deputy.
Okay. And on that date, were you with Deputy Cardona?
Yes, sir.
Was he your FTO, so to
Yes.
speak, at the time?
Yes, sir.
All right. On that date, did you get a call to respond to the cop theater in reference to a shooting?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what time you got there?
I believe it was 1:36 in the afternoon.
Okay. And when you got there, can you tell us what was going on?
The call was for an active shooter at the theater.
Okay.
Myself and Deputy Cardona entered the movie theater.
Okay.
The employees there guided us into theater number 10, where the incident took place.
All right. Now, let me ask you this question. By the time that you went into the movie theater, was Sergeant Griner already on scene?
Yes, sir, along with several other deputies.
Okay, which would have been Deputy Robarts?
Yes, sir.
And at the time that you entered the theater, was the defendant in custody, or were they in the process of placing him in custody?
I believe at that time they were detaining them as I entered
Okay.
the movie theater itself.
When you entered the movie theater, did you observe Deputy Griner, who had obtained a Kel-Tec 380 and a wallet from the defendant, handed to Deputy Cardona?
At some point, yes. The Sergeant Griner gave a black Caltech 380 to Deputy Cardona.
Okay, as well as a wallet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you observed that?
Yes.
And then you subsequently took the 380 and the wallet and you placed it in your cruiser?
Deputy Cardona did. I escorted Deputy Cardona when he
Okay,
took
but
it there. I
you
was
observed-
present. Yes, sir.
You observed it?
Yes, sir.
And then subsequently, it was taken from you by forensic investigator Amy Parrish?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to object again. They're all reading, and I know this is not a very,
Sustained.
not important, but
Sustained.
Judge, I beg to differ with counsel. I have case law on it. If you want, we can approach. If you want to see it,
Okay.
Judge,
Well, let's hear argument. Come on up.
let me get the case law. Judge, may I approach Corporal Jones, please?
You may.
Corporal Jones, I'm handing you what's been introduced in evidence. It's State's Exhibit Number 20. Do you recognize that firearm and the wallet?
I do.
And is that what Deputy Cardona received from Deputy Griner, and then it was subsequently placed in the cruiser, and then Amy Parrish got it from you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Deputy Jones, what county is the Cobb Theater in?
Pasco County.
All right, thank you, sir. I have no further questions, Judge.
Thank you.
No need for
Cross.
Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, can this witness be released?
Yes, Judge.
All right, thank you. Corporal, you're free to go. Who's next?
Your Honor, the state would call Amy Parrish.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Ms. Parrish, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you would, please, can you speak loudly and clearly into the microphone? And if you would, please, will you give all your answers to the jury, please?
Yes, I will.
All right. Can you state your full name?
Amy Parrish.
Can you spell your last name, please?
P-A-R-I-S-H.
All right. And what's your current profession?
I currently work as a senior business analyst for a software analytics company.
On January 13th of 2014, by whom were you employed?
On that date, I was employed by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office as a forensic investigator.
And how long had you been a forensic investigator with the Sheriff's Office on that date?
On that date, it was right around 9 years.
Okay. And can you share with us your education and training which allowed you to perform your duties?
Sure. I started off with a associate's degree in crime scene technology. I also got an additional associate's degree in criminology. And then I also got a bachelor's from St. Leo, also in criminology. And throughout my career, I had about 300 or so additional training hours in law enforcement courses.
Okay. And as of January 13th of 2014, how many crime scenes have you gone to and had processed?
I don't know that I'd be able to give you an exact number.
Can you give us an estimate?
Maybe at least several hundred.
Okay. All right. And as a forensic investigator, is there a certain protocol that you follow once you arrive on scene?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Tell us the protocol that you follow as far as keeping the integrity of evidence.
Keeping the integrity of the evidence is we want to make sure that we document and collect everything properly, making sure we're using the right protocols when collecting items of evidence, such as using gloves and using the proper tools, and just making sure that the evidence is protected in its best way and properly documented and collected.
All right. Besides using gloves, would you? Is there occasions that you use the booties that you put on over your shoes?
Yes, there is.
And do you have Tyvek suits that sometimes you would use?
We also have Tyvek suits that are assigned to us, yes.
All right. On this particular occasion, on January 13th of 2014, did you use gloves?
Yes, I use gloves.
Did you have booties on over your shoes?
I do recall wearing booties because I believe we had some that were stationed outside of the theater.
All right. And tell us what happened as far as when you arrived on scene. What time did you arrive on scene?
I got there at 14:27, which would be 2:27 p.m. that day, and I met with Captain Steffens, who was my supervisor at the time, and other forensic investigators there.
Okay. Did Captain Steffens give you a debriefing of what had occurred?
Yes, what he had learned since he had been there, he just kind of gave me a quick briefing on what we had. Because when we first got there, we didn't know exactly what we had, but as I was there longer, I received more information.
Okay. So as far as you were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forensic investigator Amy Kubin, was she there as well?
Yes, she also met us there.
There was numerous other forensic investigators, right?
Yes, there was two others. Forensic investigator Miller and forensic investigator Garrison was also there.
Okay. Were you given a particular assignment
When I first got there.
Well, normally investigators are given different assignments, right? One will videotape, one will photograph. Can you go through what each individual investigator was assigned to, if you remember?
Sure. Well, when I first got there, they wanted me to handle the actual theater number 10. But I was also asked to do a couple other assignments, such as photograph and collect evidence from vehicles that were there. And also, I was asked to go out several days later for additional photography.
Okay. Did you go into Theater 10?
Yes, I did.
And did you locate items of evidence which were later impounded by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir, I did.
And when you all went in to process the theater, did you label the rows like A, B, C, D, and so forth?
Yes, after we finished photographing and just documenting items of evidence, we decided it would be easier to be able to reference the seating by assigning placards to it instead of counting the number of seats and everything. So we placed a piece of paper with letters A 1 through 10, B 1 through 10, C 1 through 10 on the last three rows within that middle section of the theater.
Okay. That kind of gives us a background, but once you went into that theater, what was the first thing that you did?
First, just taking observations, and I also met with Detective Harris, who gave us additional information about where the incident occurred.
Okay. Did you locate items of evidence in row 1, or which would have been labeled A?
Yeah, it was later labeled A. There were items of evidence on the floor of that row.
Okay. Did you document in your report what items of evidence were on row A?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you tell us what items you observed?
Sure. On row A, there were items on the floor that were indicated by PIN numbers. When we say PIN numbers, that means a placement identification number. And it's just to show through photography where those items were located a little more easily because they're bright yellow numbers that show up. If you don't, is it okay if I refer to the?
Judge would that refresh your memory?
It would, just to make sure I get all of the items that were on row A.
All right. May she do so, Judge?
Oh, okay, thank you. So on the back, on that floor, there was a open package of Skinny Cow chocolate, like a treat packaging on the floor. That was pin number 11, and that would have been in front of seat A8. So that very back row, which was labeled A, and it would have been the 8th seat in. And then also there was a popcorn bag that was tilted over and had spilled popcorn. That was identified as pin number 12. And next to that was a white iPhone that had a black casing over it. I also indicated that there was a beverage cup in the 9th seat of that row, and that would have been in the left arm if you were sitting in that seat. Also on that row, there would have been a 380 auto spent casing, which was identified as pin number 14.
Okay. Judge, I apologize, and I neglected to do this. I would like to use, I believe, one of the photographs that's blown up and ask if it's okay with the court if Ms. Bear steps down so that she can not only talk about the pin numbers, but actually so the jurors can see it.
Are you gonna put it on the easel?
Yes, Judge.
I'll probably need to rearrange. I'm gonna sit next to the jury. So I can see.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
As well, thank you.
I'll make sure you got it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I apologize. Oh, here it is. This one has the so she's gonna have to motion.
hasn't been admitted yet. All right, you're gonna admit it to her before you publish it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Judge, to save some time, we would have no objections to it being admitted.
Okay, thanks. All right, so it'd be 21 and 22? They stipulated that they can, 21 and 22. And that's photos of row A with pin numbers?
The PIN numbers, Judge, are 11, 12, 13, and 14. Judge, I'd ask the record reflect that I'm showing the defense counsel the photograph and the flow.
We're good.
It can be admitted in without objection.
Thank you.
Judge, may Ms. Parrish step down, please?
She may.
You're okay, Dina. You reposition. All right. All right, Ms. Parrish, you were previously talking about placards and items of evidence. Can you go through that testimony again, starting with placard 11 or pin 11?
Sure. Pin number 11 is going to be that skinny cow package that I spoke about. Pin number 12 is going to be the popcorn bag, the spilled popcorn, and also the white iPhone with the black cover. Pin number 13 is going to be the beverage cup that's in that cup holder on the left side of seat 9. And then pin number 14 is going to be that 380 auto casing that was on the ground below that cup holder there.
Okay. If you can retake your seat, please.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to receive several items of evidence into evidence, and what have we just, you just did photos. We've already received several photos in evidence. Each of any item of evidence, with very few exceptions, will be testified typically about by witnesses or stipulation. They'll be entered by stipulation. This and all other items received in evidence will be available to you for your examination during your deliberations at the end of the trial. So anything that's received into evidence, you will get. I know you've gotten things published and you get to look at it real quick, but for the most part, everything that's received will go back with you, with a few small exceptions, but for the most part, everything will go back, okay?
Judge, may I proceed, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Judge, for the record, I'm showing it's been marked as State's Exhibit II for identification purposes to Ms. Parrish. Ms. Parrish, if you would please, first of all, do you recognize the bag?
Yes, I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
I recognize it as item AP11, which is a concealed weapons license that was removed from a black wallet.
Okay. And can you look inside and see if you recognize the contents of it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what is that?
It's a concealed weapons firearm license for Curtis Reeves.
Okay. Judge, I'll move that into evidence. I believe it's State's Exhibit number 22.
23.
23, I'm sorry, Judge. Moving to State's Exhibit JJ for identification purposes. I'd ask the record to reflect that I'm showing that to Ms. Parrish as well. Do you recognize the State's Exhibit JJ for identification purposes?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
This is item number AP13, which is the white iPhone, which we showed as pin number 12 with that protective case.
Okay. Can you look inside and see if in fact it's an iPhone with an iCase?
Yes, it is.
All right. Judge, I will offer that into evidence at State's Exhibit number 24.
It'll be admitted.
Moving to KK, I'd ask for... I'll just go out of order with this. Judge, moving to, I apologize, moving to State's Exhibit HH for identification purposes. Ms. Parrish, do you recognize this item, and do you recognize the bag?
I do. I recognize it as a firearms proficiency card for Curtis Reeves that was removed from that same black wallet.
Okay. And can you look inside and see if you recognize the contents?
Yes, it's a firearm proficiency card for Curtis Reeves.
Okay. Judge, I would offer what's been previously marked as HH as State's 25.
It'll be admitted.
Moving on to State's FF for identification purposes. Ms. Parrish, do you recognize the bag first of all?
Yes, I do.
How is it do you recognize it?
I recognize it as a business card that I collected with the name David Bryant that was removed from the same black wallet.
Okay. Can you look inside and see if you recognize the contents?
Yes, I do. It's a business card for David B. Bryant.
All right. Judge, I would move into evidence what was previously marked as State's Exhibit FF for identification purposes as 25, I believe.
26.
What I asked is that she can identify where it came from, so the jury knows exactly where that particular item was when she first found it.
Okay, and I believe she did say
Well-
that. Didn't you say?
I did on
She
a
said-
couple, but maybe not all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Judge, that was 25, correct?
26.
26?
And where was that located, the business card?
Yes, the business card.
The business card was located in the black wallet, which is item number AP05. We just haven't gotten to the wallet yet.
Moving on to State's Exhibit GG for identification purposes. Ms. Parrish, first of all, do you recognize the bag?
Yes, I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
This is going to be a retired City of Tampa police identification card for Curtis J. Reeves that was removed from that same black wallet that I mentioned earlier.
Can you look inside and see the contents?
Yes, this is the City of Tampa Police Department ID.
Okay. Judge, I would offer that into evidence as State's Exhibit number 27.
It'll be admitted.
State's Exhibit EE for identification purposes. Ms. Parrish, I'm going to ask you to take a look at the outside of the bag, see if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
I recognize it as 2 Cobb Theater tickets that were dated on January 13th at 1:02 p.m. For the movie Lone Survivor, and that was also removed from the black wallet.
Okay. Can you look at the contents?
Yes, these are the movie tickets that I collected.
Judge, I would offer that into evidence, please.
Number 28, it'll be admitted.
State's Exhibit DD for identification purposes. Do you recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
How is it that you recognize it?
I recognize it as the black wallet with the retired Tampa Police Captain badge inside.
Okay. You want to look at the contents?
Yes, this is what I collected at the scene.
Judge, I'd offer that into evidence as State's Exhibit number 29. Moving on to State's Exhibit CC for identification purposes, do you recognize that bag?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell the members of this jury how you recognize it?
Sure. This is going to be 4 Corbin 380 auto bullets that were removed from a magazine that was identified as item AP03 that I collected from Deputy Jones.
Okay. Judge, I would move that into evidence as well.
Is this one open?
Number 30, it'll be admitted.
Yeah, if you want to check the contents.
These, were they fired by FDLE?
Yeah.
Okay. They're not the same as when I collected them. They weren't the same as when I collected them. They had been examined by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I believe.
So are they no longer live?
They are casings, yes. They are no longer live.
Okay. So those are casings now. And I see they have an FDLE.
They do, Judge.
Okay.
I would offer this into evidence as well, Judge.
All right, and Ms. Parrish, just so we're clear, you collected them from Sergeant
Deputy Jones.
Deputy Jones, and they were live out of the magazine?
They were live out of a magazine that had already been removed from the firearm.
Okay, but they are now?
They are not live anymore.
Are all 4 of them spent?
Do you want to check and
Yeah.
see if there's all spent?
Yes, they are in fact all spent.
Okay, thank you. And you did not receive them in that condition, but you also notice an FDLE sticker on there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Judge, I'm sorry, what number are we up to?
The next one will be 31. The casings are 30.
This is 31?
No, casings
30?
are 30, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Parrish, I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit BB for identification purposes. Do you recognize the bag?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize, and how do you recognize it?
This is going to be the magazine that was removed from item AP01, which was the Keltec firearm.
Okay, do you want to check the inside?
Other than a piece of tape that's been added, that's how it was collected.
Okay. Judge,
I apologize.
What did you say?
There's a piece of tape that was added. It's likely from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement on top of the magazine at this time.
Judge, I would offer that in evidence as State's Exhibit number 31.
31, and that's the empty magazine?
Ms. Parrish, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit AA for identification purposes. Ask if you recognize the outside of the bag.
Yes, I do.
How's it, do you recognize it?
This is going to be one Corbin 380 auto bullet that was removed from the chamber of item AP01, which is the Keltec firearm.
Okay. Can you check the contents?
Similar to the other items that we looked at, this one is also going to be a spent casing now. When it was collected, it was a live round.
Move it in as State's Exhibit number 32, Judge.
Okay.
Judge,
It'll be
lastly,
admitted.
I'm going to be showing what's been marked for identification purposes as Z to Ms. Parrish, Judge, and I'd like to place on the record as well, Judge, this is in fact the 380 Keltec. It has been checked by Corporal Shipley of the Sheriff's Office. It is clear, the chamber is clear, and it has a zip tie which will not allow the slide to come forward, nor can you insert a magazine in the magazine well.
All right.
Okay.
That'll be 33, and I have also examined it, and I'm all right with
Ms.
it.
Parrish, do you recognize that box?
Yes, I do.
And how is it do you recognize it?
This is going to be the box that contained the Keltec 380 auto handgun, serial number JV135, collected from Deputy Jones that day.
Can you check the box and see if you recognize the firearm?
Yes, I do recognize the firearm.
Okay. Judge, I would move this into evidence as well.
All right, that's number 33. It'll be admitted.
May I approach the clerk, Your Honor?
You may.
All right, so, Ms. Parrish, on January 13th of 2014, you photographed and documented all the items of evidence that were at the scene,
That's correct.
all right? Now, I believe one of them, item number 14, is the spent shell casing.
May I refer back just momentarily? The spent shell casing is actually going to be item number AP02. The one from inside the theater, is that the one you're referring to?
I'm sorry if I confuse you. I'm talking about the one from inside the theater. I just wanted to make clear, you did not collect that one, correct?
I did not, no.
Okay, that would have been Amy Coogan,
That is correct.
another forensic investigator.
That's correct.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
Okay. Even though you photographed it and marked it and all that, you weren't the one that actually took it into evidence and collected it.
That is correct.
All right. So, have we discussed all the items of evidence that you photographed and you collected as far as evidence goes, other than the spent shell casing?
I also collected an item from within a vehicle that was parked at the theater.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to go to a vehicle which you later became known to you it belonged to Curtis Reeves?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Judge, may I set up the easel while she's marking that evidence?
You may.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
for the record, I'd ask the record reflect that I'm showing what's been marked as state's exhibits. Looks like OO, MM, and NN to defense counsel.
There's no objection if the state's
Alright.
moving to admit this in evidence this time.
All right, are you gonna admit those that you got in your hand right there first? Okay.
For the record, Judge, I'm showing, it looks like QQ. It's like PP. Yeah, QQ and PP.
Likewise, Your Honor, no objection if the state wants to move to admit these items into evidence.
Okay, thank you. So the first one, that'll be 34. The big one is the big photo of the vehicle. I know. 35 will be the same photo, small. And what's 36? Is that a license tag, did I see?
I will,
The one underneath that one?
Judge, I believe it's under here where
Right.
you can actually see.
I just need for identification purposes. Okay, there
Yes,
it
yes,
is.
it's,
So that'll be 36, the license plate, picture.
Just can you tell me the letter of that,
What's the letter of that one?
of the license plate?
the actual license plate itself, Judge?
No, the letter on the back.
No, I knew you were asking me that. It's MM.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I wasn't gonna give you the numbers off the license plate.
I didn't think so.
So MM is 35?
No, the license photo is 36. The small photo of the car is 35, and the big photo is 34. And then
there's these photographs as well, Judge. There's,
large photo of the front of the car,
it's QQ.
QQ,
Yes,
be
ma'am.
37, large.
And
front.
then the small photo is PP.
Okay, and that'll be 38. Small front car photo. All right, are you wanting to publish those?
Yes, Judge, I'd move these into evidence as those prospective numbers, and I'd ask if Ms. Parrish can step down, please.
Okay, they'll be admitted as 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38. And she may publish.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the jurors are asking if you publish them or you talk about them, could you go over those numbers for them again? Like, reiterate the numbers for them,
Okay. Like the ID number?
the evidence number, yeah. Changes from a letter to a number.
Just say what the numbers are, Mr. Garcia.
Judge, may Ms. Parrish step down, please? Ms. Parrish, do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
Did you in fact take that photograph?
Yes, I did.
All right, and one of the purposes for taking that photograph was to either portray or indicate that there's no handicap sticker on the license plate?
At the time, I was just identifying the vehicle and where it was in location to the theater.
Okay. But as you see it now, are there any type of handicap stickers on the license plate itself?
I did not note any handicap stickers on the license plate.
Okay. And moving to the
What
other,
was the exhibit number on that?
on this one, Judge? The exhibit number on the large one is 00.
Number?
Well, that's the ID.
Oh. you
That
didn't
is what
write
the
it in.
jurors are requesting,
Okay.
the number to
Okay.
be reiterated.
Madam Clerk,
Yeah, Judge, I would ask if Madam Clerk can reiterate the numbers.
that's the large photo
The
of the
large
back of the
photo of the back of the car.
And I'm saying that's 35.
35?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk is saying the large photograph is 35, Judge.
Okay.
And MM
36.
is 36.
This is the license plate.
That right, the license plate. And NN, Madam Clerk,
34.
34.
Small photo of the back of the car. Okay.
All right, and Ms. Parrish moving to the front of the vehicle now. And Madam Clerk states QQ for identification is what number?
37.
37, Judge, is the large photo. And Ms. Parrish, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And how is it that you recognize it?
It's a photograph of the silver Honda Accord that was parked in the southwest parking lot of the theater.
Okay, and if you look at the front of the vehicle, specifically the rear view mirror, are there any type of placards or handicap stickers on the vehicle?
No, there were not any handicap placards on the sticker, or on the mirror of the vehicle.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, PP
38.
is 38. It's same photo, it's just smaller than the blown up one. Ms. Parrish, if you can retake your seat, please. All right. Any other work that day, Ms. Parrish, on January 13th?
There were a couple other items that I collected, but I don't know if that was to be included. There was just some swabs taken, and there was a $100 bill in that wallet as well. So
Okay. The swabs, were they of apparent blood?
yes, they were
That you
of,
swabbed?
of apparent blood. Yes.
Okay. Any other work on January 13th, 2014?
As far as documenting, collecting evidence,
No.
no.
All right. Was there a subsequent date that you went back to the movie theater?
Yes, there was.
And what date would that have been?
That's going to be on January 23rd of that same year. I returned back to the theater.
And who did you go back with?
I went with forensic investigator Kubin, detectives Proctor, and there was two other detectives. I can't recall their names off the top of my head. I want to say it was Harris.
I'm sorry?
Detective Harris. Oh, and Detective Smith.
Okay. So Detective Proctor, Detective Harris, Detective Smith,
And
yourself, and forensic investigator Amy Kubin.
yes, that's correct.
And for what purpose did you go back?
I wanted to take additional photographs of the theater just to portray more light. Because the theater is designed to be dark, I brought in some additional lighting stands just to be able to illuminate the seats better so that we could show where the seats were in the theater.
What sources of light did you use to accomplish that?
Just some regular photography lighting stands. And then we also did what's called painting with light, and that just means that you leave the shutter of the camera open to allow more light in, and we just kind of paint with a flashlight to be able to get more light into that photograph.
Okay. Judge, may I have a moment, please?
You may.
Judge, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross?
Okay, Ms. Parrish, when you were part of the forensic investigation team with Pasco County Sheriff's Office, when this happened, you had probably around 9.5 years experience, right?
It was somewhere around 9 years, yes.
with over 300-plus hours of law enforcement training, in addition to your bachelor's degree, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then your bachelor's degree was in criminology
Yes, it was.
with a special course of study in forensics and that sort of thing.
They refer to it as criminalistics, but yes,
Criminalistics.
yes.
Okay. And so when we talk about forensics and criminalistics, we're talking about the same thing?
Yes, it's going to be the same type of courses that you would get as a forensic science degree or a crime scene technology degree.
And that has to do with preserving evidence
Yes,
that
that's
you
correct.
talked about today, collecting it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Handling it in a certain way.
Yes,
I noticed you used those gloves there when you handled the evidence.
yes, sir, I did.
And also kind of documenting the scene, right?
Yes,
It's important to document the scene so that, for instance, 8 years down the road like now, we can all look at it. The jury can look at kind of what it was at the time, right?
yes, that's correct.
And that also helps, for instance, the accused, because now his attorneys have access to certain information that you've preserved, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So in this case, you said that you went to the theater and you met with, you met with Sergeant Steffens first?
He may have been sergeant at the time. When he left the sheriff's office, he was a captain.
Okay. And so you met with Captain or Sergeant Steffens, and he told you basically what you have there, and what happened, right?
That he knew of so far, yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I imagine he told you, hey, this must be a self-defense case.
No, he did not tell me that.
He told you, hey, this is a case where somebody may have gotten hit with an object.
No, he did not tell me that.
So as far as you knew, it was just a shooting and they had the guy that fired the shot.
I knew that there was a shooting within Theater 10.
Okay? Because we can agree that, for instance, if it's a self-defense case, you may look, for instance, for objects that may have been used to attack an individual that was defending himself, right?
We would look for any type of evidence that would have involved that particular event.
Okay. And so, but what I'm talking about is, for instance, if you go into a scene and you're told, hey, the person that's accused here is saying that he got hit with a blunt object. You're going to pay attention to objects. Let's say this is in a small house. You're going to pay attention to objects that you normally wouldn't pay attention to, right?
Yes, if I had been told that information, I would look for objects that could have been used, correct?
For instance, if you went into a house and somebody said they got hit with something, they're not sure what, and they had a pool table, right? You'd probably look at the pool balls,
Yes,
because a pool ball can be a weapon that can seriously injure someone, right?
sure.
Or you could look for something as innocuous or something seemingly as harmless as maybe a kitchen utensil of some type, right?
If that was part of the event, then yes, I would.
Well, but if you didn't know, but you were told, hey, somebody may have gotten hit with something, you might look for maybe an ice cream scoop that was on the counter or something like that, right?
That's correct. I would also try to identify the object, because there's going to be a lot of objects within a home, so I try to get more information about what that object could have been.
Okay, and so if you were told that somebody had been struck with an object, or at least is saying they'd been struck with an object, if the detectives told you that, now you're going to look at things a little differently, right?
That's true, yes.
Or at least ask for more information.
Yes, I would.
And those items that you would normally just photograph, you might preserve in a different fashion to see if there was any sort of physical evidence on those items, right?
Yes, if there was some type of, maybe there would be some apparent blood on an item, sure, yes.
Or DNA,
That's correct.
or fingerprints,
Yes, that's correct.
those sort of things.
Yes, sir.
And so in this particular case, you didn't have any of that information, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
You
that?
didn't have any of that sort of information in this case?
Not that an object had been thrown, no, I did not.
Or that it was even a self-defense case?
No, I did not.
And then you also spoke to Detective Harris. Harris didn't tell you any of those things either, did he?
I don't recall Detective Harris telling me that, no.
And so again, essentially, you just photographed the items as they were there in the theater, right?
Yes, sir.
In terms of being able to preserve the scene so we could all see it, since you didn't know that, did you know, well, let me ask you, did you know this happened in a darkened theater, for instance?
I did not know the lighting situation at the time.
Did you know that this happened with one individual seated in the back row and other individuals standing over him.
I may have known that at the time. I don't recall if I knew those specifics.
Judge, I'm going to object to that characterization of another individual standing over him. I don't believe there's been any testimony to that effect.
Did you have any information that there was an older gentleman, a 71-year-old, seated in a seat, and a 6'4", 43-year-old was standing up right in front of him during a movie? Do you have any information like that?
I would not have had that much information, no.
What I'm getting at is, let's say you knew it was dark in the theater, correct?
Correct.
And you've done studies. Part of your training was to photograph a dark environment, a dark room.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you have a theater that's dark with maybe a backlighting of a screen, then there's potential of being able to maybe somehow simulate silhouettes.
There could be, sure.
And you weren't asked to do anything like that.
No, I didn't. I did not know what the lighting was when the event actually occurred, so I wasn't able to recreate that.
And based on your experience and your education, that might have been something, had you been giving that information, that you may have suggested, right?
I may have, to be able to reflect what it looked like at the time, sure.
Meaning the lights,
Correct.
at the very least, and maybe even the sound, right?
Maybe, if it was, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me look, if I may, approach the clerk with this, to see State Exhibit 24, please. Madam Clerk, Madam Judge. All right. Now, describe to me, you said as you were gathering evidence, you talked about, for instance, the shell casing within the theater. Now, when you went into the theater, you put gloves on?
Yes, I had gloves on in the theater.
And what sort of gloves do you put on?
For myself, I wore a nitrile glove because I'm allergic to latex that just covers your hands.
Okay. And may I approach the witness for just for a second? Thank you. And are these the type you're allergic to?
No, they're not.
Okay. I was just asking because you put them on. And so what you do is you put on a pair of gloves and you go into the theater.
That's correct.
And when you go into the theater, do you remember which item you picked up first?
I don't recall which item I picked up first.
All right. So let's say you pick up the shell casing first. I don't know. Did you put them on, the gloves, right when you got into the theater or some other time?
Gloves were on my hands throughout the whole time that I'm there. Sometimes we would change gloves in between. But as far as the casing, I didn't collect that one. That would have been Investigator Kubin.
Okay. When you went outside, you collected the gun from Deputy Jones?
Yes, I did.
The firearm. And the magazine and, right, as well?
Yes, that is correct.
And those items were taken out of the theater and they were in the trunk, Deputy Jones's trunk.
Yes, that's correct.
And so that's where you got them.
That is where I got them
And
from.
so you put on gloves before you handled the firearm, I imagine?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so those gloves, you gather the firearm, are those the same gloves you have on when you go into the theater?
No, I would have changed out my gloves before collecting that firearm.
Okay, and do you know that you changed out your gloves?
I'm not certain, but I would like to say that I would have, because that would have been a practice that I used when I was working in crime
Well, I
scene.
understand, but you're here to document evidence. So did you document someplace on any of the forms, gathered firearm, changed gloves?
I did not document that in my report.
Well, what about this? Let's say the firearm, because all you know is somebody got shot in the theater, right?
That's correct.
So you'd want to get as much evidence off of the firearm as possible, or not yourself, but at least preserve it so that somebody else could do that in a laboratory of some sort, right?
My first priority would to make sure that that firearm is secure, so we had to make sure that we extracted that bullet that was in the ejection port. And of course, you want to preserve as much evidence as possible.
Okay. And that evidence would include DNA,
That's correct.
fingerprints.
Correct.
And so when you handled the firearm, you had a glove on.
Yes, I did.
Now, I imagine you took that glove off and put it in with the firearm.
No, I did not.
You see where I'm getting at, right?
No.
This is what I'm getting at. DNA is kind of a sensitive thing, right? It's easy to move around. You know that, right?
Yeah.
You have to be really careful about preserving an item for DNA, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so what I'm saying is, if you touch an item with your glove on, potentially, what's going to have the DNA from the item?
There is potential for transfer of touch DNA, yes.
And if you put that in the package with the gun now, they can examine A, the gun, and B, the glove to see if there's anything, any kind of transfer DNA, right?
Correct. It would also add my DNA to that bag.
Okay. Well, you put the gloves on the inside, right?
Correct.
All right. So if it added your DNA, then you can be included or excluded. I mean, that's what they do, right?
That's true.
So you could produce a swab, and they could say, Parrish's DNA is not part of the mixture, is part of the mixture, right?
They can say that, correct.
But they can also see what else is there, right?
In certain circumstances, yes.
Okay. So certainly you would agree with me by not putting the glove in with the item that potentially now you have destroyed evidence of DNA on that item.
I disagree, because I can't confirm that the DNA has been destroyed unless I knew that it was in fact there.
Okay. Let's talk about the cell phone. You had gloves on when you grabbed the cell phone off the floor?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did you grab the cell phone? Was it face up? Let me ask you that.
It was face up when it was on the ground, yes.
Okay. And so the screen was right side up?
The screen was right side up.
And when you grabbed it, how did you grab it? Do you remember? If you don't remember, don't say, but if you remember, then tell me how you grabbed it.
I don't recall how I grabbed the phone.
You had it with gloves on?
Yes, I did.
And again, the gloves aren't in the packet with the cell phone, right?
No, we don't keep our gloves in our bags.
Okay. And so in this particular case, I'm going to tell you that they couldn't determine, the lab, that even the owner of the phone's DNA was on it. And so potentially,
I'm going to object, that's not accurate. No, it's not.
All right. What? Yes, approach.
we spoke earlier about this idea of transfer DNA, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so that means that an item you pick up, potentially DNA from that item could be on the glove you were wearing, right?
It could potentially, yes.
Okay. And in this case, we don't know because you didn't save the glove that you picked the phone up with, right?
I don't know that there was DNA on the glove, no.
Well, but did you swab it for DNA?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you have it send it off to a lab to be tested for DNA?
No, I did not.
Okay. And did you put it with the phone so we know you picked up the phone with it?
No, I did not.
Did you bag it so we know at least you did this investigation with it?
Judge, I'm gonna object. She's not qualified to answer these questions about DNA and transfer.
Your Honor, if we're doing speaking objection, she just testified now that there was gonna be no DNA on it.
Overruled. She's testifying to what she did.
No.
That's okay.
And so you didn't preserve the glove in any fashion. This is part of this investigation, right?
It's normal practice for us to dispose of our gloves.
Okay. So the answer is you didn't save the glove in this particular investigation
I did not.
because that's your normal practice.
That was our normal practice.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the clerk to return the Exhibit 24?
Redirect?
Judge, may I have a moment, please?
You may.
No further questions of,
May this witness be released?
yes, Your Honor.
Is she subject to recall?
We have her under subpoena.
Okay. Ms. Parrish, you're free to go, but you may be subject to recall. If you're recalled, you have to come back.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
ma'am.
Thank you. Council approach. Next witness, state.
Your Honor, the state would call Amy Kubin.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you God?
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel. Ms. Kubin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Kubin, I'm going to ask that you speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, please, and if you would direct all your answers to the members of this jury.
Okay.
Can you state your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
Amy Suzanne Kubin, K-U-B as in boy, I-N as in Nancy.
What is your current profession?
I'm a department manager at Petco.
All right. And Ms. Kubin, directing your attention back to January 13th of 2014, how were you employed then?
I was a forensic investigator for Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. How long were you a forensic investigator with the sheriff's office?
Total,
Total.
almost 15 years.
All right.
A few months shy.
Did you have any specialized training or education which allowed you to perform your duties?
I attended St. Petersburg College. They have a crime scene technology course. It was 10 core classes, and then you could go on to get your actual degree.
Okay. And did you in fact do that or not?
I got the certificate program. I did all the core classes. I never finished the actual degree.
All right. Prior to January 13th of 2014, can you estimate how many times or how many crime scenes you actually went out to and processed?
Hundreds, easy.
Okay. All right. All right, so directing your attention to January 13th of 2014, were you on duty or working that day?
Yes, sir, I was on duty.
Okay, so where were you? Were you at like District 2? Or were you out and about and you get a call?
I was in the Linda Lakes Forensic Services Section building.
Okay, out on US 41?
Yes.
All right, so I assume that you got notified that there was an incident at the Cobb Theater.
Yes, sir.
Did you respond to the Cobb Theater?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what time you arrived at the Cobb Theater?
May I refer to my report?
May she do so, Judge?
I arrived at 14:27, 2:27.
2:27 in the afternoon.
Yes, sir.
All right, were other forensic investigators going to the scene as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you arrived on scene, did you meet with anyone?
Yes, I did.
Who did you meet with?
We met with Detective Harris, forensic investigator Parrish was also there, 2 other forensic investigators, Deputy Elders, Captain Steffens was there.
Okay. Who actually gave you a briefing of what had occurred in the theater? Was it Captain Steffens?
Yes.
I'm going to object at this point in time unless the predicate is late for refreshing. I don't want her to read from the police report. It's improper.
Okay. Ms. Kubin, would your memory be refreshed if you read from your police report as to who briefed you on what had happened?
Yes, sir.
All right. May she do so, Judge?
Refresh your memory, yes.
Captain Steffens informed us of all the pertinent information.
Okay. All right. And it's my understanding different investigators get assigned different tasks.
Yes, sir.
Did you videotape the crime scene that
Yes.
day?
Yes, I did.
And was Investigator Parrish assigned to photographs?
Yes, she was.
Okay. So you videotaped. What else did you do?
I placed pin numbers, which are markers. They denote all the evidence at the scene, and then I collected evidence.
Okay. The PIN numbers, did you assist forensic investigator Parrish with PIN numbers? I believe it was 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you actually placed those pins there.
Yes.
And she took photographs of it?
Yes, sir.
There, okay. All right, so Judge, I'm going to ask for well, actually, I need to approach the clerk, Your Honor. Judge, I'd ask for it to reflect that I'm showing to defense counsel what's been marked as state's exhibits for identification. SS, TT, UU, and VV. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Just in the record, Your Honor, the defense has no objection to admission
Okay,
of these items into evidence by the state if they wish to do so.
thank you. We'll enter them as she identifies them. Do you have scissors?
Do you want gloves?
Yes.
Yes.
Here they come.
Okay. That's good. The lady with allergies in that one.
May I proceed, Judge?
You may.
All right, for the record, Ms. Kubin, I'm handing you what's been marked as state's SS for identification purposes. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And did you place that pin next to the object?
Yes, I did.
And what's portrayed in the photograph?
There's a shell casing.
Okay, a spent shell casing?
Yes, sir.
All right. Judge, I would move that into evidence as
39.
39.
Mm-hmm. It'll be admitted?
Judge, may she step down for demonstrational purposes? I'd like to publish this to the jury at this time.
Okay. Does she need to publish it, or
I'm sorry, Judge?
does she need to publish it? Or do you want to just do it?
Oh, I was gonna, well, I wanted her to assist me in it, Judge, to point out where the shell casing, it's hard to see in the photo.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Kubin, for the record, it's been introduced in the evidence. Can you point out to the members of the jury where exactly the shell casing is in the photograph?
It's actually right there.
Okay, we'll move this way then.
It's to the left of my finger.
All right, let's keep moving so everyone can see it.
I can't see it.
You can't, okay.
It's way far away. It's too dark.
Step down between those two.
I don't think it's gonna help, Judge.
Okay, well,
Can I just,
it's there, and you're pointing to it, and it will go back. If you got the general idea of where it's at, you will get it back into evidence during your deliberations.
everybody okay?
Okay, you can retake your seat. Okay, State's Exhibit TT for identification purposes, do you recognize the outside of the bag?
Yes, I do.
And how is it that you recognize it?
It's my handwriting and it's my initials on the seal.
Okay, and you collected those contents on January 13, 2014?
Yes, I did.
Can you open up the bag, please?
Do you want me to remove the item?
Yes, please. Okay. Is that the popcorn bag that you collected back on January 13, 2014?
Yes, sir.
If you could put it back in the bag, please. Judge, I'd offer this into evidence at this time.
All right, it'll be admitted as 40.
I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit UU for identification purposes. Do you recognize the bag?
Yes, sir.
And how is it that you recognize it?
It's my handwriting and my initial.
Okay. And if you would open it up, please, and see if you recognize the contents. Do you recognize the contents?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
It's a empty package of skinny cow creaming clusters.
All right. Judge, I would offer that in evidence as State's Exhibit number 41.
It'll be admitted.
If you can repackage that, please. Moving on to State's Exhibit VV for identification purposes, do you recognize the bag that's contained within the plastic bag?
Can I take it out?
Yes.
Yes. It's my handwriting and my initials on the seal.
Can you open the bag, please, and see if you recognize the contents?
continue opening.
Do you recognize that, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from the outside of the bag, is that the spent shell casing?
It appears to be.
Okay.
Those are my initials.
Was that the spent casing that was at pin number 14?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I would move that into evidence as well.
All right, will be admitted as 42.
42. Thank you. All right, so Ms. Kubin, on January 13th, you testified to collecting those items in the theater that day. Is there anything else that you did as part of your regular duties that day?
Package the evidence.
Okay. All right, my understanding is you had another involvement in this case, right?
Yes.
Can you share with us the date that you did additional work on this?
I believe it was January 23rd.
Okay. And can you tell us where you went and what you did?
Forensic investigator Parrish and myself assisted the detectives Proctor, Harrison, Smith. We returned to the theater to rephotograph using additional lighting.
Okay. Additional light sources.
Yes, sir.
Did you do the photographing, or did forensic investigator Parrish do the photographing?
Forensic investigator Parrish.
Okay, so I assume you assisted.
Yes, sir.
Did you do anything else as far as this investigation goes?
At that time, I attempted to take apparent measurements of a couple of the seats in row A and row B.
Okay. Did you take those measurements?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you say measurements, are you saying the seat itself in the back, or?
It was distances.
Okay. All right. So share with us, what were the distances?
In row A, which would be row 7 technically, the distance from the exterior armrest at one end of the row to the exterior armrest at the other end of the row was 46 feet.
I'm sorry, was what?
46 feet.
46 feet from, say that again.
It says distance from exterior armrest at one end, row A, to exterior armrest, row A, at other end.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My hearing's getting bad. So you went from the first seat all the way across row A to the very end seat then?
To, I believe, row seat 10, I believe.
Okay, all right. Any other measurements?
I did back wall behind row A to the front of the seat in row B, with the seat in the down position, as best I could put it in down position.
Okay, now, are you saying the distance from the back wall to those seats, or the height, or what exactly did you measure?
The distance.
Okay. The distance from the wall to row A?
From, yeah, the theater was divided into 3 sections. And we were in the middle section, and there was a wall behind it.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions, Judge.
Just real briefly.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Kubin.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Kubin, is that correct? Kubin?
Either or.
Okay. your training consisted of obtaining a certificate from St. Pete College,
Yes, as well as on-the-job training.
as well on the job training. Okay, and when we're saying on the job training, you're kind of shadowing the other investigators or forensic techs in order to learn from them.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, there's a national certificate that you are able to obtain in your field, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And do you have that national certificate?
No, sir,
Okay.
not at that time.
4 of you were assigned to go out there the night of January 13th, 2014, correct?
Yes, sir.
It was yourself, Garrison, Miller, and Parrish.
Yes, sir.
The only information that was given to you initially was there was a shooting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, when you get there, and you're assigned, your duties to go in and forensically preserve this theater tent, you have different jobs, right?
Yes, sir.
Your initial job was to videotape, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The inside of theater tent.
Yes, sir.
The only thing you brought with you that day was your notepad.
As far as in the theater with me? I believe so.
Okay. And so you get your video camera, and you're supposed to be taking video of the interior of the theater, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you assigned or even instructed to take that video with the lighting in the theater being at a certain level?
From my recollection, we always did it as it was.
You mean as it was when you got there?
Yes.
But you got there quite a long time after this particular incident, correct?
I don't know what time the exact incident occurred.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would your report help you in remembering what time you got there?
Yes.
Okay, and so please look at your report, and then if it refreshes your recollection, then tell me what time you arrived.
We arrived at 2:30.
2:30?
Yes.
Okay. So approximately about an hour after the incident, correct?
Well, our unit got called at 2:02.
Your unit got called at 2:02.
Mhm.
Did anybody tell you what time the incident had allegedly occurred?
No, sir.
Okay. So you get there 2:30,
Yes, sir.
right? And you go in with the rest of your group, your assignment, videotape. Nobody tells you, hey, listen, we want you to videotape at a certain level of lighting in there.
No.
You just videotape it at whatever lighting it was when you were in there.
Yes.
And for lighting, you all only brought a flashlight.
Yes.
And so you didn't bring any type of illumination lighting to help you illuminate the areas that you were going to be either videotaping or photographing.
No.
In fact, you don't even believe that at the time that you were working there on January the 13th of 2014 with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, you don't even believe that you all had such lighting.
No, we had spotlights.
You had spotlights, you just didn't bring them.
They were in our vehicles.
Oh, they were,
They're always in our vehicles, yes.
but you didn't use them.
No.
Okay. Now, may I have, Madam Clerk, item number 39 that was admitted? It's the photo, the last photo. This photo is up to you. I believe it was 39. Now, you didn't take this photo, did you?
No, sir.
Ms. Parrish took this photo
Yes, sir.
because you were videotaping, and Ms. Parrish was behind you taking photos, correct?
I don't know exactly where she was, but yes, by that time, I had already done the video and she had already done the initial photos.
And she has a camera,
Yes, sir.
and that camera does have a flash.
Yes.
And that camera has the ability, after you take a photo, to look to see what that camera captured.
Yes, it's
So
a
you
digital
can see
camera.
if it's of sufficient forensic quality or not,
Yes,
right? And so you would agree that State's Exhibit number 35 is extremely dark.
yes, sir.
You would agree with me, may I approach you on?
It's 39, by the way.
39.
You
Well, I
said
thought I said that.
35.
Oh, sorry, 39. You would agree with me that 39 is not of good quality.
Correct.
It's certainly not of forensic quality.
It's very low light, yes.
And that's not the only picture that you, or that Amy Parrish took on January the 13th of 2014.
No.
There was a multitude of pictures that were taken that day, correct?
I don't know exactly how many, but yes,
Many.
many.
Okay. Now, when you all got there and you started doing your work, you didn't see Detective Proctor, who was the lead detective in this case, for quite some time after you were already there.
Correct.
You didn't see him coming into the theater until some time, quite some time, after you already were in the theater.
I believe so, yes.
And so you finish your work there, correct?
Yes.
And then 10 days later, the detectives say to you, we need you to come back out because the photographs that were taken on January the 13th of 2014 were insufficient.
They told us they wanted additional photos.
It wasn't Amy Parrish that said that she thought they were insufficient. It was detectives that actually told you that they were insufficient, correct?
I don't recall who exactly told us, but they told us to meet us out there
The detectives did.
to take additional photos.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
No, ma'am.
May this witness be released?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cuban, you're free to go.
Thank you.
You got one more short one?
Should be quick, Judge.
Okay. Did you get your ring?
I have it.
Ms. Cuban, no, to her ring, did you grab your
Yes,
ring?
I have
Okay,
it.
good. State?
Judge, the next witness would be Corporal Bunner.
Yes?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May I proceed, Judge?
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Counsel. Deputy Bunner, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to ask that you speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, please, and direct all your answers to the members of this jury. If you would, please, can you state your full legal name and spell your last name?
Full name is Stephen Bunner. Last name spelling is Bunner.
And Deputy Bunner, what is your current profession?
Deputy Sheriff.
And are you assigned to any particular division within the sheriff's office, or?
Just patrol operations.
Okay. Deputy Bunner, directing your attention to January 13th of 2014, do you recall that date?
I do.
What time were you going on duty?
I was scheduled 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. that day.
And at the time, did you live close to the Cobb Theater?
I did.
As you're getting ready to go on duty, did you hear some radio chatter?
I did on the agency in-car radio.
Okay. Based upon that, what did you do?
I immediately left my residence and started heading towards Cobb Theater.
Okay. And did you stop anywhere, or did you stop in any of the roadways?
I stopped at the intersection of Old Pasco and Oakley Boulevard.
Okay. And had you received some information that someone believed that the suspect or the person may have left?
That was initial radio communications, yes.
Okay. You found that to not be true?
Right.
Did you then proceed to the movie theater?
I did.
When you got there, who did you meet with?
I met with Sergeant Greiner and Deputy Robarts.
Okay. And at that time, was Sergeant Greiner the highest ranking official there?
From what I recall, yes.
Okay. And did you all proceed to go in?
We did.
And it was Sergeant Greiner, Deputy Robarts, and yourself?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us tactically or how you went into the theater?
It was a three-man team. Both of them were in front of me and I was behind them.
Okay.
We made it through the main lobby of the movie theater and then proceeded towards the entry doors to the number 10 theater. You would like for me to continue to describe?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the lobby doors open, and then once you enter the lobby or the theater doors, the hallway into the theater continued straight ahead.
Okay.
And then once you ended there, that's where the movie screen was, and then the seating went up this way. They continued towards the screen, and then to the left was a separate hallway that went to the left, and then continued up towards the other side of the seating.
All right. So you did not go in with them?
Not all the way at
You
first.
stayed at that hallway, right?
Right. I stayed back at the hallway. They continued
for
up.
what purpose did you stay at that hallway?
There was limited information at the time. I didn't know who was involved or to what extent. So I stayed at that back section to prevent anybody from circling back or leaving the theater, just to help contain right there in theater number 10.
Did you wait there a while?
Not very long.
Okay. But at some point in time, you said, it's kind of quiet, I don't hear anything.
Right.
Did you go in the theater yourself?
Yes.
Okay. What did you see when you went in?
Well, I left that post and then went down the hallway where the other two deputies went. And then once I got to the movie screen, I turned and looked up the seating.
Okay.
And then once I was at the bottom and looked up, that's when I saw Sergeant Greiner and Deputy Robarts up at the top level, or near the top level.
Okay. And they were detaining Mr. Reeves at that time?
At that time, yes.
All right. After that, did you have an occasion to be assigned to the defendant's vehicle?
I was, yes.
A silver Honda?
Yes,
Did you locate that vehicle in the parking lot?
I did.
And I think we have. If you have the names, I'll use those. Judge, for the record, I'm showing 34 and 38 to defense counsel. They're already in. May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may.
Deputy Bunner, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And this one as well, the front of the Honda, the rear of the Honda?
Yes.
And did you notice if this vehicle had any placards or handicap signs either hanging from the rear view mirror or on the license plate?
I don't recall seeing any.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to show RR to defense counsel for identification purposes.
No objection if the state is moving to admit that in evidence.
Thank you.
Judge, I would offer RR as state's exhibit, is it 40, 43?
Yes, 43. It'll be admitted, 43. And what's it a picture of?
Judge, it's a picture of the front of the cop theater.
Okay, thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like to publish it to the jury as well.
Okay, you may.
May I approach the witness, Judge?
You may. Wait till they,
Well, likewise, these next two exhibits, I guess there are four because there's the photograph and the poster board. The defense has no objection if the state wishes to admit them at this time and assign them according to the numbers.
okay, thank you.
Judge, we can go ahead and move them in, and then I'll have Deputy Bunner step down.
Okay,
So,
that'll work. There'll be, what do you got? You have 43 was a small photo of the theater, so
I'm trying to do it
by your letters.
alphabetically,
Yeah.
Judge. So it kind of, we have XX, which is a large photograph of
The
the
theater.
front of the theater.
Okay, so that'll be 44.
And then we have, same photograph, a smaller version, which is WW.
Is that different from the other one? Yes, it is, okay. WW is 45, small photo.
And there are two others, Judge. There is ZZ, which is the large photograph of the side of the theater.
46,
And
large.
YY is the small photograph of the
Okay.
same picture.
47, small, side, okay.
Judge, may Deputy Bunner step down, please?
Yes, he may.
Deputy Bunner, if you would, please.
Judge, may I also relocate?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
On that date of January 13th of 2014, can you tell the members of this jury where the defendant's vehicle was located?
Right there. No, I'm sorry, right here by this, I don't know what vehicle that is.
Okay.
Right there.
And were you asked to determine the distance from the theater to that vehicle?
I was.
And how did you measure that distance?
In my patrol car, I carry a little handheld that has a wheel on it, has almost like an odometer on a car, and it measures feet as you roll it. So I walked. You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I parked my patrol car in the same spot, and then walked what I personally would think would be a logical path to walk to the main office. And I took my roller to the front bumper of my patrol car and walked from here onto the sidewalk, around and through, which I can't recall which pillar in between, and into the center of the box office. Then I measured one trip that way, and then did the same in return, and walked back to my patrol car. And I don't think I took the exact path. I kind of walked across this way.
Okay. And can you share with the members of this jury the distance that you determined it to be?
I averaged it out in between, I think it came out to be 132.15 yards on average between here and here.
Okay. If you can retake your seat, please. Could you have a moment, please? Judge, I don't have any further questions of Deputy Bunner. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia. Mr. Michaels?
When did you conduct this measurement experiment thing? When did you do this?
January 11th of 2022.
Okay. So just this year, a little over a month ago.
Correct.
You pointed out on the easel, the theater, it doesn't exactly look the same anymore, right?
I couldn't tell you if it looks the same or not. I've only been out there the one time.
Well, you were there.
The recent one, let me clarify. The one time during the incident, and then the one time that I recall on doing the measurement.
Okay, so the theater looks the same to you on the outside now?
I mean, it looks familiar, yes.
So you can't say if it's a different color, for instance, gray instead of pink?
I don't recall.
Now, when you measured this distance, did you measure the time it took you to walk there?
No.
Do you know what time, by any sort of, I don't know, surveillance or anything, that Mr. and Mrs. Reeves arrived at the theater on January 13th of 2014?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Do you know what time Mr. and Mrs. Reeves arrived to park in that space that you pointed out?
I don't.
Do you know how long it took them to walk from the parking lot to the front door?
I do not.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
May this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy. You're free to go.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Corporal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached a stopping time for today. I'd like to begin at 8:30 again tomorrow, and please remember my instructions during the recess. No independent research, no watching the news, no discussions, and even amongst yourselves. Any questions, thus far? All right, we're moving along, as you can see. And we'll see you all in the morning. Thank you.